biggest thing for me was to make an epic scale film that carried as much emotion as it did scale.
My favorite part of the process has been Rupert Sanders. I love that man. I think he's a phenomenal filmmaker.
He kind of came with the bar really high. I mean, his work is incredible.
He's a genius, the kid. It's like this new batch of directors that are coming through, you know, and a lot of them come from commercials.
Okay, spray him and we'll go.
Yep.
As a producer, what I look for is someone who's great at something. And looking at his commercial reel, it was clear he has a fantastic eye. And so I figure my job is to kind of fill in the blanks.
Joe was a real guardian to me and really just kept his belief in me and kept me kind of pushing forward. Maybe, Lil, you might have to, like, when she starts to...
With any first-time director, there's, you know, a leap of faith in many ways. Because I'm not an actor who wants to go and do it by herself. Like, I really love the idea of a partnership within my actors and my director. I like being directed. I want a director.
Great. Cut. Brilliant. I think we're good. Thank you, Charlize.
And I felt that with Rupert.
Everyone's got the different way you have to deal with them once you start to get to know them as personalities. You know, it's like your friends. You work with them all in different ways. When you leave, Chris, I'm just more inquisitive than a rush to get there, okay?
I've never been given the opportunity to actually have collaborative input on this level. I mean, initially, we were really left alone. It was like me and him figuring out exactly how to be Snow White.
You're the king's daughter.
Action! Over there, guys!
I've never felt more comfortable with the director, you know. I think he has a lot of respect for us actors, and we have equally large amounts of respect for him.
I never want to leave. I mean, I'm constantly following him around. I'm sure that he hates me. I mean, I'm sure he'll come in and tell you that I'm great, but I am sure that I annoy him very much. But it's been awesome.
What I really tried to do was to give them as much of what I had in my heart and brain about the world and the characters, and try and bring it to life as much as possible so that they can inhabit that world.
Yet another kingdom falls to your glory.
He's incredibly visual, and so that was kind of my first encounter with him, was seeing his storyboards and understanding that he very much comes from a visual place of storytelling.
He was the one that sort of sold this project to me. It was talking to him and talking about his ideas and him showing me clips of ideas and visions that he had for certain scenes and certain aspects of the film, and he quite literally blew my mind.
I mean, every day we'd be on set and he'd say, oh, what if we put the camera up here and you did this, and sort of improvising with it, but just getting these amazing shots. You ever have an eye for those kind of things or you don't, and he just sees the world through a different point of view.
That's a good silhouette there.
Yeah. Okay, and cut. Excellent. All right, guys, I think that adjourns.
Back up, these boys. So, guys, everyone take their positions, please. Let's go. Let it come back.
And then during the day, you know, you have to give it a tug every once in a while, right?
Watching Colleen Atwood come up with these costumes, I mean, that's an unbelievable talent.
Prior to this film, I'd done several quite large and quite crazy commercials with Rupert. I think he's got a special feeling and a special talent. So I was really honored that he asked me to do his first feature.
It was really amazing when she said she'd do it, because the wardrobes really blend seamlessly into the world, but they speak volumes about the world and the characters.
When you look at the research, it's a big span. We say it covers kind of medieval times, pre-Renaissance.
Colleen's amazing because she works from textures and material up. She's very sculptural in what she creates.
He's injured, Mother.
For Snow White's mother, I wanted to sort of have a feeling of softness and wealth and kind of kinder times.
You possess a rare beauty, my love. In here.
I'd met with her initially and she showed me this incredible old, heavy kind of linen sheet that she'd found years ago. She said she'd had it for about 20 years.
I had this sheet that actually had a royal crest on it. that I'd bought years ago from a fabric vendor, and it was beautiful, fine linen with handmade lace edge.
Take two.
And so she said to me, you know, I think I'm going to wrap the baby in this sheet. And she said, I've been waiting for the perfect movie to use this on.
Great, got it?
There's something about Snow White that I always liked. She was always a doer. And I think that translates really well into modern time. So I found this beautiful green suede that looked great on Kristen with her eye color, and the underdress sort of became a complement to that.
It had to be of the era, but it also had to kind of rip down into something a bit more aggressive in a way.
Action!
You're so beautiful.
That's kind, child. Especially when it is said that yours is the face of true beauty in this kingdom. Colleen really truly understood the themes of the story, that it's not just about beauty. Ravenna really believes that men will only allow you to be as good as you possibly can be if you are beautiful.
When a woman stays young and beautiful forever, the world is hers.
Ravenna is a consumer. She consumes people's souls, and she consumes their beauty. And then there comes a point where she's taken everything there is out of what's around her, and we see transitions of her beauty deteriorating.
My vision for the wardrobe was that it must be made from death. So we used a lot of skulls, we used a lot of bones, we used a lot of beetle shell, beetle heads, crow feathers, anything that was associated with something that was dead or a harbinger of death.
She created these claws for my fingers that, you know, it's the devil's in the details. I mean, it's all these tiny little things that once you have it all on, the character just comes alive.
Immortality.
I think you can't design for a character like Ravenna without having a character like Charlize to work the costume, because it is a lot of costume and could be overwhelming.
Action!
In a way, these dresses were like torture devices.
Okay, cut. Okay.
And I loved that because I felt like Ravenna was more torturous towards herself than to the people that she was killing in a bizarre way. I could see her in the morning being, you know, just forced into this corset, and her believing like, you know, if I'm not in this, I'm not my best. And that so informed me into playing her.
You will do this for me, Huntsman!
And if I refuse, do me the favor, I beg of you. I loved what I had to wear, you know, it suited how I wanted to play the character, how it felt right, and it was practical and comfortable. You can imagine kind of wearing this a couple hundred years ago. Stay here.
The Huntsman lived outside, so we conceived a sort of leather vibe for him.
Colleen just is incredible. Every costume in this is just so impressive.
And she is the modern day, like Edith had, in a sense that she really can come up with something that feels period, but has a kind of modernity to it that makes it feel very sexy.
I've got quite a love for history. And I went back to a lot of kind of images of knights and heraldry and big battles. So I kind of put all the things that I loved about that period into a big melting pot.
Rupert's approach to the film design-wise is that everything is just slightly enhanced or slightly taken into that fairy tale zone or the abstract.
I saw visuals that absolutely transported you somewhere else, and it wasn't at all what I expected.
What was great about the concept art was really boiling down all my ideas into single plates. You know, you start with a sketch in your sketchbook, then you see it pinned up on the wall in the art department, then you see the concept art, then you see the polystyrene model on the table, then you go outside and you see the set itself. It's a great transition to watch from paper to sets.
We built this castle, you know, over at Pinewood. It was an enormous set. It was fun watching it being built from the ground up.
Pinewood became like a maze from above. You'd walk through, you know, Hammond's castle, lift up a green screen, go into Ravenna's castle. You'd walk through that into the Troll Bridge. You know, while the Troll Bridge was being remade into the icy waste, you know, there'd be a village there, and everything was literally stacked in.
The attention to detail in every set was absolutely sensational.
The hall in which Ravenna has her throne, for instance, is a striking example of a very effective use of medieval features.
The idea with this set is that anything that is near Ravenna just turns to kind of a blackened ash. So we've tried to show that in our furniture and the designs of everything. And around the walls, you just see vines and kind of dirt and soot and destruction.
And then at the center of this hall, her remarkable throne, which in its detail has all sorts of medieval imagery, monsters, demons, tortured figures, executed individuals.
The sculptures and the carvings indicate this death and this destruction and this evil power that Ravenna has.
No! Rupert has been very clear about the importance of giving this world a grittiness. He just didn't simply want to reinvent a pseudo-medieval village.
So chatting away, guys, enjoy yourselves, here we go!
He wanted to give it a dynamism, a vibrancy, a focus, a functionality, a living existence. And he wanted to inject that kind of gritty detail into the film at every level.
Great. All right, cut it. It was really a very emotional part for me, you know, seeing the stuff that we'd drawn together and then see it start to become the finished thing. It was such a rich and rewarding part of the job for me to see that come together.
It's very difficult to be able to transport yourself to a different place on a soundstage. And luckily we don't do too much of that in the movie. We're on a lot of real locations.
We're up in this rolling, dramatic countryside trying to shoot some epic moments. As you can see, it's about 20-mile-an-hour winds and the rain's coming in, but everybody's in good spirits and we're getting the shot. We scoured England from north to south and east to west to basically put together the movie. So the locations stem from Scotland to Wales to Northumberland, which is up on the Scottish border, to, you know, London.
One of the things that we really wanted Rupert for is he loves in-camera stuff. He's not about green screen so much. And so we knew that he was going to get down and dirty. He's going to put that camera right in the middle of the battle sequences.
We got about 10 cameras out here, tracking vehicles.
We're doing the combination, sweeping shots, fast tracking shots, chasing shots.
We've probably got every toy known to mankind.
Hey, cut it! Cut!
It's day 17 of the shoot. We've got Sam Claflin, the Prince, up the tree, jumping down on a wire.
My first day of filming is probably the most exciting day I've ever had of filming anything in my life.
3, 2, 1, action!
I was surrounded by other stunt guys and all these horses and all this fire and climbing trees and running under flaming beams. It was like playing knights in shining armor.
We had very different fighting styles. Sam had a very sort of graceful, you know, pointed, sharp sort of approach.
I'd say the bow and arrow is definitely the biggest challenge of, of this job for me. It's all good in the hood. It was quite tough, and I wasn't quite quick enough to use proper arrows that they've had to CGI a lot of it. So thank you very much, visual effects guys. They've worked wonders for me.
Wait until they're close and drive this through their heart.
I couldn't do that. I get to do a bit of my own defending. And in the most realistic way, I definitely don't suddenly turn into a warrior. She's very reactionary. She hasn't learned how to fight, and she doesn't want to. It's not something that she finds any pleasure in, and so it's always down to that last second, and then it's just pick up an arrow and stab someone in the chest with it.
There is blood, it is done!
It's been really physical in that I get the crap beat out of me, and I keep getting up.
I knew it, I knew it, I knew it.
Yeah, she likes to get worked up, and she likes to throw herself in at the deep end. You know, she did a lot of her own stunts.
I was always worried because she goes from 0 to 100. So it's not like she warms up and stretches or things like that. She just throws herself into it.
Action!
Look at this. It's crazy, everything. And my knees look worse than that. Much, much worse.
Kristen escaping in the beginning out of the castle. That's her jumping at probably 16 feet, something like that, into the water, and she did it herself.
Jumping into the tank was the hardest thing. I don't know if you've ever wanted like a bottle of water in a cooler full of soda and you just can't find it. That is how cold it was.
It was late October in England, you know, so it's fresh.
I know it sounds extremely dramatic. I jumped in and I stupidly blew all my air out, and I was nervous, and so I screamed. And by the time I was just about to hit the surface of the water, I was like, I have no air in my lungs right now. And it just shot straight up my nose. I came out like, I thought it was gonna be one of those situations where I was having some scuba diver like scoop me out of the water, and thank God that didn't happen, but I really thought I was close to that. Yeah, it was good.
3, 2, 1, action.
She really went there. She didn't love horse riding, but we both knew how important it was that she got up on that horse.
Riding horses scares the crap out of me.
Kristen's actually riding Russell Crowe's horse, the Robin Hood horse, yeah. Russell won't ride anything else, that's his horse.
Horse riding is something that wasn't, again, on my skill list before this job. I wouldn't trust me on a horse.
I've only ever ridden for films and for TV over the years, and it was much better to say you don't know what you're doing and then maybe you're okay than to come in and say I'm the best horse rider, and you're not.
Yeah, Chris rode really well before he got here. Said he didn't, which was really unusual because he's normally completely the other way around, so yeah, I can ride and they can't.
I don't know where the advantage is there with lying about how good you are at something, because then you better be good, otherwise you look like an idiot.
Is everything good for you? The steam look good?
Stilts feel good. The great thing about working with Steve Dent, who's the stunt coordinator and the horse teams, is that these horses are so well trained, they make idiots like us look really good.
It's a big undertaking, this scale of film. It's arduous shooting for 90 days out in the elements, and there's a lot to do in a very little time, but it keeps the adrenaline going.
I've worked with plenty of people who've done far more films and far more, so-called experience, and have been, not nearly as equipped and focused and innovative as he has.
Scooting and then jump back as it's fired.
There was a really great kind of independent spirit on set. We all knew what we were doing, we all got on and did it, but we had fun doing it.
It's been great working with Rupert. I just knew that we were on the same page. It's been awesome.
I've enjoyed doing this very, very, as many varies as I can say much.
I had a really, really good time making this film. I found myself in very peculiar liquids, taking baths and crawling out of oil, and this is not my comfort zone, and I liked that.
I had so much fun doing it. To be able to creatively explore something with a piece of material with this much history and resonance to it on this scale, it was really, you know, the high point of my life this far.
Cut it. And more, guys.
Once upon a time, a daughter was born to the queen and was named Snow White.
You possess rare beauty, my love. It will serve you well when you become queen.
We're doing a huge spin on this story.
Bring me the king's daughter. What does she want from me?
Obviously, Kristen Stewart as Snow White is probably the most iconic bit of casting that has been done for many years.
The studio initially felt we should hire an unknown, and we just had a hard time finding someone who could capture the entire range. And then Kristen came along.
Who are you? Why is the queen wants you dead?
You should know you're the one hunting me.
What really impressed me when I met her was this kind of firecracker energy. Kristen is incredibly instinctive. She's incredibly spirited. She's like an unbroken racehorse or something. She's kind of wild.
She's a great actor. She's done a tremendous, diverse body of work.
Would you care for a dance?
I'd be honored, girls. It was so feminine and so human.
She's great, you know, very detailed in her sort of approach, you know. She has a real strong sense of the truth in the scene. Unless she believes it, and then it's not going to happen. You know, she's got to find out, well, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? So it's great. She doesn't miss a beat, and it's a very thorough way of working.
I overthink everything, and I'm always obsessed with being like, okay, well, what about this? Have you ever thought about this and this and this?
I told you to run.
You should thank me.
Let's go with the suffice line.
Really? It's not too stuffy?
All great actors, all great artists ask questions, and that's why her performance is going to be so good, because she cares about what she's doing. She's an actress, she's not a movie star.
Watch out. She's amazing. She's really, really incredible, and her instinct is rare and very animalistic.
Right. All right.
She likes to throw herself in at the deep end, you know, punching Hemsworth in the face during a fight scene.
He got too close, man. That's what happens. No, I'm ridiculous. I just got so into it.
I'd sort of grabbed her and was, you know, questioning her at Snow White about something, and she was supposed to throw a right hook and just sort of miss here. And a couple of times it was getting really close, and one of them sort of skimmed my nose, and I was like, ooh, that's you know, and I was about to sort of say, you know, we should probably work out what the distance is, and then someone said something, so we're off, and then the next take was just.
I didn't actually mean to punch him. I just got too close as well, and it was just a mistake. It felt horrible.
And I remember just hearing a crack going, yeah, it's broken, you know, and just spinning out of my shot.
It's just one of those things, you know, like a little too close and a little in the heat of the moment.
And then everyone sort of, it was, oh, you okay? And she was sort of freaking out. I said, it's fine, let's just keep going, we'll keep going. And then from my peripheral, I could see sort of this lump rising up, and I was like, that's my nose. And then we had to sort of rub some ice into it. And
people's reactions were like, you punched Chris Hemsworth in the face, just because it's so...
Yeah, it ain't special effects, it's my face getting swollen up.
It's going to be in the movie, by the way, so people can see it.
I still don't trust you.
I think that Snow White is a modern woman that every young girl can identify with. The hurdles and problems that she faces are all the issues that young women deal with today. Beauty.
It's a good example of what you think beauty is, what you find beautiful in life. It's really been interesting and awesome to play a young girl who is completely unaware of any vanity. Every role you're gonna play, realistically speaking, a young girl, you're at least aware of yourself.
Our scars protect us. Without beauty, we are worthless to the queen.
Snow White is such a strong life force that the state of the earth is so decrepit and poisoned, and that affects her supernaturally.
She's the opposite to Queen Ravenna, you know. She's not selfish. She doesn't do it all for personal gain. She wants the best for the people.
I will become your weapon, forged by the fierce fire that I know is in your heart.
Snow White must rise from an orphaned prisoner to conquering an evil queen and retaking her kingdom. She's got a great journey.
I love playing a character who is someone that you're going to root for and throw your drink on the ground and stand up and go, yeah! She's not fighting for herself necessarily.
You must turn back! No! I gave them my word!
Ravenna and Snow White are bound in a way. It's kind of her job to go and make things right again.
Action. By Ferris blood, it is done.
Now she's sitting on the throne, and is that going to suit her? Does she want to do that? You know, what new challenges are going to arise? And I think she could take it anywhere now.
There's a lot of stuff that's been left unsaid. And so it leaves a lot of room to explore what happens in the second film.
Hopefully we get to make that next.
What is your name, my lady?
Ravenna, sire.
Ravenna is the evil queen, played by Charlize.
She's the darkness within us all, magnified by 1,000 times.
Ravenna, to me, as an outsider, I see her as all of the things that the audience will. But as an insider playing her, I had to kind of not think about those things.
The beginning, Ravenna was a much more mysterious kind of character. You didn't really know where she came from necessarily, and she was sort of just evil incarnate. The producers and Charlize as well thought that, you know, there's a way we can make Ravenna a little more complicated. What we decided to play with this idea is this kind of thematic statement of beauty equaling power.
When a woman stays young and beautiful forever, the world is hers.
So she has sort of a very surprisingly complex, sort of Freudian backstory.
Drink, drink. Tu Ahia, you will become the bane of kings.
Her mother instilled to her at a very young age that she can only be her true best self if she remains young and stays beautiful. Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Hopefully we've been successful creating a character who we empathize with to a degree, but not enough that we don't find her disturbing and evil.
I will take your life, my lord. Then I will take your throne.
Ravenna is a character that, because of, I think, the lives that she's lived and this kind of soul that's been around for a really long time, and then her magical essence, I think, has great instincts. But it's an instinct that she follows that's very brutal. And so she kind of realizes with her magical powers that that is kind of her survival.
She's truly kind of stuck in this limbo, the most bitter hatred you could ever imagine anyone encompassing.
Such courage, such beauty.
Beauty for Ravenna is not a pure thing.
Song.
There's something twisted in her desire for it.
Take her heart in your hand, and you shall never again need to consume youth.
She does everything for personal gain. Everything's for her. I mean, to be honest, if I had the power to be able to look beautiful for the rest of my life, I'd be very happy.
Who is fairest of them all?
Charlize, she's one of the great beauties of the world and gives a performance as ferocious as the one she won the Oscar for.
She is my undoing.
She just brought this incredible wounded quality to the character, which I wasn't expecting.
She's always in control. She's magnificent to watch.
No good to me in the dark forest lost!
And she's fearsome.
This is my first day on set. And I was supposed to have a bunch of little pieces, you know, to shoot for a while, ease my way into it. And they said, oh, we've switched the schedule and your first scene up is this big two-hander between you and Charlize in the throne room. And I was like, what? I haven't even learnt the scene, let alone, you know, prep myself.
My brother tells me you are a widower, a drunkard, and one of few who has ventured into the dark forest. One of my prisoners has escaped there. Find her.
She was sitting up on the throne and she has this icy cold kind of evil stare that she throws at you.
Bring me the girl, and I will bring back your wife.
It was kind of the nice way to start in the end because you jump in the deep end and it forces you to really kind of have a good grasp on your character because it's something to sink your teeth into. I think I can bring her back.
I can.
She's perfect to play the queen because she's got this presence.
I will give this wretched world the queen it deserves.
I really wish that I had more time to actually work with Charlize.
Go on. Watch them die.
We had a really quick fight and it was a lot of fun, and she can level you. But I kill her so quickly.
By Ferris blood, it is done.
I'm not a method actor, but there were some things about this character that I really kind of, I guess, embraced.
She'll get down and dirty. She's not scared of like lying in a tarry bath of black oil and kind of crawling out in 80-year-olds' prosthetics. I mean, she loves the whole disguise of acting.
I like that I was given the opportunity to go and do something that people don't get to see me in very often. And I just relished that. I think that's what made the whole experience for me overall just really fun and really great.
Chris Hemsworth is a really decent, lovable Australian guy.
No! Chris is like right up there. I mean, he's just like salt of the earth.
The nicest guy ever.
And if I refuse?
He's very Shakespearean in his skill set, and he's very kind of muscular and well-fed in his diet.
He's a dude.
Everything's fine besides this huge big fire back here.
Roll on! Huntsman is the man we'd all want to be, probably.
I have 2 major fights with Chris Hemsworth.
3, 2, 1, action!
He's huge. He's like 6'2", 6'3", but he is a massive guy as well. He's got kind of arms out here.
We got a bunch of fights. The stunt team come up with some amazing ways to sort of wield axes and bits and pieces, which makes it all the more interesting to watch.
When I was at school, I spent a lot of time running away from people the size of him. I mean, I've kicked his butt a bit already, and I enjoyed it immensely.
I've played sport all my life, and it's like playing sport. It's very physical, you know.
Okay, start him up, Steve.
Chris does some kickboxing and Thai boxing in his private life, so when he brings that to the table.
I've got 2 brothers, and we used to run around the forest and hit each other with swords and things, so it's like being a little kid again. In your stomach, kick.
He's very coordinated in fight sequences.
Sing.
He makes my job a lot easier.
Let's get this a bit more fluid then.
Bam. Flying knee.
He bats it out.
He can pick stuff up really easily.
Oh, we're doing a second.
We're doing a sec. Yeah, go.
Okay, here we go. Set and action!
Got it! Sorry, I hit a few people. We shot some of the scenes where the huntsman was sober, and they were very detailed and spinning of the axes and using various weapons. And then we went and shot the scenes at the beginning of the film where he's a drunken mess.
You got me money from my pocket!
So it becomes very sort of wild haymaking swings. Messy.
Okay, reset the fight, guys.
Hemsworth pub fight is really great. Trooper in that.
Action! Guys, go back to the start.
It was cold and miserable, and he's slapping around in the mud, being thumped around by an ex-cage fighter turned actor. So he did a great job in that, and it's a very funny scene.
Let's fill this thing up with some hot water, yeah? Really? Won't it be sort of steamy? Is that better? Some little bubbles?
Chris and I spent a lot of time working on the character together.
When I first read the script, I said my concern was, look, I don't know what you're thinking for this character, but I don't want to play Thor, you know? I don't want him to be the strong hero again.
Okay, here we go.
So we then decided that his colouring would be different to Thor, and his, texturizing his skin to kind of get that look of someone who's outdoorsy, and making sure that his hands tell the story of being, a huntsman.
I wasn't worth saving, that's for sure, but she did so anyway.
What's great with Chris is he loves film and he loves cinema, and he knew what kind of film this needed to be. And he brought not only an incredible physical presence, but an amazing emotional presence.
Drive this through their heart. And do not put it out until you see their soul.
Got it.
Can we just go again?
Here we go.
And Chris has just an incredible drive, really loves what he does and wants to push himself.
He's turns up, does it, no fuss. And I think we work in an industry where often there is quite a lot of fuss.
Very good.
Chris's energy is perfect for the Huntsman.
There is good in you, Huntsman.
I really try to push the inconsistencies with characters I play. People are inconsistent, The worst thing you can do is say, oh no, this is my character, he's in this box, and that's all he does. And I think if you keep people guessing, it's more interesting, and that unpredictable nature is surprising and more exciting, and I think you offend people and then win them back.
So you're back from the dead and instigating the masses.
You get a bigger payoff, I think.
This is our lucky day.
Oh no, dwarves. Before we even had a studio, Rupert came in and he said, I have this idea. I'm thinking Ian McShane. I'm thinking Bob Hoskins. I'm thinking Ray Winstone.
I wanted to find tough guys with big hearts. It was almost like casting a British gangster film.
Is this how you treat a friend?
No, you bugger. This is how I treat a friend.
The dwarves are definitely not what you'd expect.
Cockney geezers would apply to most of them.
We should chop them up and feed them to the wolves.
I remember talking about it last year when I was doing Pirates of the Caribbean, and it was mentioned if they could get a bunch of English eccentric character actors together and would they be willing to play dwarves, it would be an exciting thing.
Well, I was excited to work with the cast.
Once you cast one, the others start to fall into place.
I think in the span of 3 weeks, he met with all of them, and all of them were like, I'm in.
I spent a couple of hours with each one of them describing the world in great detail.
He's give us the context, he's give us the visual world, and he said, now, right, you create your characters.
It was great that once we created those 8 plot dynamics, to see them then really take it and put it on its feet and craft really wonderful characters. A lot of it really was trusting me and having sweet talk them into doing it, I guess.
We all have our mini-me's. They picked 7 actual small people.
I'm playing Bob Hoskins' double called Mia.
I'm Craig Garnett, and I'm doubling Toby Jones.
I'm Lewis, and I'm playing Neon, which is Nick Frost.
Doubling Gus, the dead guy.
My double is the most gorgeous blonde you've ever seen. She's lovely, Jo. Who was picked to play me?
I am Jo Osmond, and I'm doubling Mr. Ian McShane.
We've formed very close relationships with our dwarf doubles. We had to study them and study the movements and the physicality of a dwarf.
My double head, he had to learn the way I walked, and I had to learn the way he walks, and we had to amalgamate.
We're just watching what the actors do, and then we're going to do the exact same thing.
There is a basic principle how the actual walk works.
We went to Dwarf College.
We all went down to a big farm out in the country and we worked hard. We started work with Peter Elliott, who's a great movement coach.
The first thing you've got to do is invent a walk. Get a little bit of movement in those shoulders, so it's coming there. And remember, one step comes straight after the other. We don't want 1, 2.
You got to sort of get your arms up.
It's not as easy as you think.
It was quite a thing, not to exaggerate, just to get the roll of the shoulders and everything. Pretend you've got short arms, not to make any big, expansive gestures.
If
You have to really contort yourself. And if you do it for any length of time, it really hurts. So there's been lots of lovely hot bubble baths for me when I get home.
We had to learn how to walk like a dwarf, how to eat like a dwarf, how to talk like a dwarf, how to think like a dwarf, and then to fight like a dwarf. We're the kind of ninja dwarfs.
What we're doing here today, we're coming into the castle, breaking in the castle through the sewers. And we're going to start killing people.
Dur, he's got a low centre of gravity, a bit like Mike Tyson. Great uppercut, and he fights with a pickaxe.
They've got knives, they've got sickles, they've got all this stuff. And once they attack, yeah, they're pit bulls.
Sorry.
When you first read the script from a visual effects point of view, that's the thing that jumps out at you like, oh my God, we're going to have hundreds of shots where we have to make normal-sized actors look like they're quite small.
In some shots, we will reduce them, which is basically shortening their legs.
I mean, they're not all just digitally reduced. There was a lot of walking on platforms to make the dwarfs appear smaller. A lot of our little tricks are in camera, and I love that. Rupert tries to do that as much as he can.
Sometimes we've even had lead actors on their knees.
For a third type of shot, we use a body double.
They usually do from the body up on us, and then the wide shot, they do the smaller guys. They all have entire face prosthetics of their bigger counterparts, so the set can be strange sometimes.
David White, the prosthetic designer. We've got 5 hours to go. We're outside of the prosthetic trailers.
Oh, you're in makeup for hours.
You get picked up about 2:30 in the morning, and you sit down, and this guy puts a load of glue on your face.
2 hours in prosthetics, getting a fake nose, fake forehead.
And they kind of weave like big sideburns into my own beard.
You got people slapping your face and touching you and spraying you.
They shave my hair off to put a wig on, which is odd. And then you got to shoot for 12 hours on top of that. So it's not all premieres and foie gras.
The hardest thing about making them up is because they're so funny, and it's a whole comedy routine that's just going on. So you go, how are we supposed to work under these conditions?
Once we got the makeup on for the first time, I was then able to go and sit in front of a mirror and just start looking in the mirror and start learning about my new face. It's very much like doing mask work.
Colin Atwood's costumes, I think, are fantastic, because that's half the thing, too. They're not the sort of caricature characters. They're dressed quite gaudily. They obviously like themselves. I mean, they're quite fancy brocades and jackets and gold, and they're quite chic little guys.
You have padding put on your bum and around your crutch so that your legs look shorter. As soon as you put the costume on, we're these naughty little dwarfs.
It's been great to have the camaraderie between the 8 of us.
I think the director bit off more than he could chew when we turn up, because we're like a bunch of naughty, drunk schoolboys.
It looks like one of mine.
Dwarves brought so much to the film. They're a comical interlude, and they bring another balance of emotion. You know, they're really, really heartfelt guys.
Tough as nails, but with big hearts.
They really love each other. I wanted them to cry together and laugh together and fight together. And, you know, they're a real band of brothers.
Hail to the Queen!
Hail to the Queen!
I think the fairy tales are very cleverly designed moral stories that are structured in a way that we and our children can enjoy them, but it imparts a big kind of moral question, or imparts some kind of knowledge to us about the human condition. To me, Snow White is the most relevant today. It's the one that as a child I was most scarred by visually. There's a lot of imagery that stayed with me.
There is a canonical set of Grimm's Brothers fairy tales, and I believe Snow White is technically called Little Snow White. Disney made the version called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but the original fairy tale is called Little Snow White. The idea for the sort of revision of the story was born many years ago. I actually wrote the first draft of this script when I was, I think, a junior at film school at NYU. What I tried to do in the script is take that foundation and spin it and tell a new version, a revised version of Snow White that makes it cutting edge and cool and relevant.
I had never read the Snow White fairy tale, so I kind of went back and did some research. And I found out that the huntsman was in the fairy tale for about a paragraph. And I thought, wow, what an interesting character. So I met with Evan Doherty, the writer, and Evan and I sat down and I said, I think the huntsman should be the co-star, and I think that opposite Snow White, and I think the tone should be much more muscular.
When I first read Evan's script, that was the thing I loved about the character, was the idea of, you know, that archetypal sort of loner hero.
When you meet him, he seems like a brutish sort. And he is. He's a tough guy, and he lives in the forest and hunts and fights. But I think when you discover more about his past, you realize that there's a thinking, feeling person in there. You have this idea of Snow White and what she represents. I think this is an opportunity over a short amount of time to see her kind of grow and change.
It was all about, you know, what really happens to a girl if she sees, you know, her father killed in front of her and is thrown in prison for X amount of years.
And so that's really fun to see her become fierce. And I don't mean just in a physical way, I mean in a mental way.
Part of what we worked on was making it into what we call a two-hander, where sort of there's two primary characters that kind of play off of each other and they both change the other and they have a journey together.
I said, you know, let's retitle it and call it Snow White and the Huntsman. And we finished the script and showed it to Joe.
I read it and went, wow, this is really good. This is, you've figured out the tone of what the movie has to be, because to me in all these fairy tales, tone is everything.
Rupert was a guy that I'd been tracking for a while. I had seen his Halo stuff, I'd seen, you know, Call of Duty, and I was in love with his work. And so he was the only filmmaker I sent it to. And he came in and he had unbelievable ideas. He said, this is what I think the forest should look like. This is what I think the castle should look like. His passion was so contagious.
And I was impressed with how bright he was.
It came down to pre-production, and we were trying to tell the studio what the tone would be of the film.
It's a very hard thing to pitch how you're going to do something, and I think people really need to be on board with what you're trying to do creatively.
And so he said, you know what? Give me a camera. Give me 5 actors. Let me go into the woods. In this case, it was the Disney Ranch. Let me film this in 5-7 days.
Who will you be when faced with the end?
What we tried to do here was to create really an essence of what the film was like. So really I went off and shot a 3-minute commercial, if you like, or a trailer. My nephew, who's a young actor, was in his tighty whities coming out of a bird's chest and crawling along a log.
The end of a kingdom. The end of good men.
All the people I've worked with so long, Cedric, Nicholas Triad, the visual effects supervisor, Dominic Watkins, the production designer, Greg Fraser, my DP, Colleen Atwood, the wardrobe designer, we got together and really on a shoestring, under Joe's guidance, we went off and very cheaply shot this 3-minute piece.
Rise to the ashes. Rise to the winter sky.
He'd shot, I think, in like 2 days or something, and it looked like they'd spent months on it and was pulled from a $200 million film. Like, it was just amazing.
The strength in it is that it shows really what the film could do, and I think the emotional resonance came from a poem that Joanna Gekas wrote that Chris Obi, who became the Mirror Man, voiced.
Death is a hungry mouth, and you are the apple.
And ironically, Chris became the voice of the Mirror Man. Joanna sang the song when Gus the dwarf dies that carries us across the mountains.
And then we show that to the studio. And so, of course, you always think like, is this gonna help us, or is this gonna be a complete backlash?
When the vultures are circling and the shadows descend.
What he came back with looked like a 4-minute movie.
Will you cower, or will you fight?
I think we had a very different take on it. There hasn't really been a filmed version since 1937, so it felt like it was time. It was really bringing a classic story to a new audience in a modern way.
And the studio just fell in love with it, and they totally got the scale and size and the epicness of the movie.
Is your heart made of glass, or of a pure Snow White.
And we got the green light.
I wanted to do something where I could create a world. I wanted to do something that had a heart, and fairy tales have that emotional spectrum.
I've been working with Rupert for 8 years. So when he got the movie Snow White and the Huntsman, he called me up.
Cedric was a huge asset to me, helping creating a lot of the creatures. It's great just to have someone who creatively you're very aligned with.
Cedric and I are supervising this film together. It's quite unusual to have two supervisors on a film, but with the really, really tight deadline on this, it made sense for us to both work on it together.
Tape it, bring the table, and we shoot it. I've never supervised a big movie before. And so for a French kid coming from a fisherman village, it was a great adventure.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
Rupert had this really clear idea of what he wanted the mirror to look like.
I was always very sure that I wanted to bring artists into the filmmaking fold, and I've always admired an Irish artist called Kevin Francis Gray's work, and I saw the sculpture he did. They're almost like Rodin's, but they're very modern. When I saw that, I was like, there's no way I'm going to do better than that. Kevin and I worked together on coming up with a new version of that.
Mirror Man evolved through a process of research and development. We always try to hit the overall brief of something elegant and magical.
What we came up with just after a lot of experimentation with the guys at the Mill in London is something that's sort of like half liquid, half cloth.
The challenge was to make him come out of the mirror. We had this idea of, instead of having like pouring and dripping like liquid, like we will peel him off like a fabric, like silk. And he kind of drapes and rise up. What I was interested in is the change of state, making him from a clothy, liquidy state to a more solid state. And something that was really important for Rupert and myself is like he has to be faceless, because his face has to be the reflection of Charlize.
Technically, in order to capture this, we had a prop, a shiny shape, and we put a camera inside this prop. So the prop itself gives us a nice lighting reference for how the eventual figure will behave in the lighting. And the camera in there captures Charlize's performance, so we get a direct view of her in the middle of the scene.
The Mirror Man sequence is as much about Charlize's performance as Ravenna as it is about the Mirror Man, because really it's her performance reflected in this CG character.
Take her heart in your hand, and you shall never again weaken or age.
Immortality.
When I first met Rupert, we spoke about the Dark Forest, and he wanted it to be quite an intense, hallucinatory effect.
The main inspiration for the Dark Forest was to be very scary. To come up with creatures that maybe not have been seen before.
It was something where the world is a bit upside down. The gravity is weird. Everything is a little bit weird.
The beetles, we generate a system where we can have lots of beetles crawling over each other. That was a big challenge.
We've got mussels oozing this viscous black fluid, this oil.
I have to say, I think the snakes are my favorite things that we've done in the film.
The Dark Forest was constantly evolving. It was a challenge in just being creative and just trying to make it more creepy, more creepy.
The bridge troll sequence, that's one of the more memorable, like, full-on CG creatures that we'll be doing.
The troll Cedric designed, we knew we wanted something kind of troll, but not a troll we'd seen before. We knew we wanted it to have a kind of ape-like feeling, and we knew that it had to become part of the stone bridge, so I kind of worked on it conceptually when I was doing the concept art.
When I designed the troll, I was really adamant that we had to make it more of an animal or more a creature. Something that is not good nor bad, something that is just an animal.
We made a decision early on to use motion capture as kind of a starting off point.
How tall are they? Motion capture, for those that don't know, you put markers on all the joints and you film it with lots of optical cameras, and that creates like a moving skeleton, which then makes move the CGI character that's been designed in the computer.
Peter Elliott has done a lot of work with gorillas and things like that, so he's particularly good at animals that have different proportions to humans.
This set has been built according to the pre-visualization that we've done, so we know where the troll is going to be and where the actors are going to be. So we installed a blower in the water there. So you see Chris running back and it's going up like that. That's because we timed that with the steps and the punches of the troll in the water. Really what's hard here is the fact that the troll is not there.
Kristen does the whole scene looking at a pole with a tennis ball.
But to give a little bit of more of something, I was just grunting and roaring down below.
We had to be inventive and figure out ways to make his face feel real, like it was driven by real muscles, and have the kind of twitches and movements that you'd expect out of a real face. And then the animator would go in using our motion capture as a guide for how it's going to work.
Get to the point where you've got this troll and he's lit and he feels like there are dry parts to him and wet parts to him. That's when you really start to think, wow, I could really pet his fur, you know.
I'm really happy with him. He's a good animal.
Where are we? They call it Sanctuary, milady. It's the home of the fairies.
The Enchanted Forest is really the last sanctuary of what the world could be like or used to be like.
Rupert had ideas of making it a sanctuary where the rules of nature don't apply. For example, we have the snake, like covering a snake with moss, or like a turtle with a little garden on top. So very poetic type of imagery.
We populated a lot of the shots with rabbits and badgers and foxes and squirrels.
Characters that were designed to look and feel realistic in some way, but still have something unusual and fantastical about them.
My favorite idea was this idea that the fairies had a host animal that they traveled in. Cedric and I worked a lot on, should they have bigger ears, smaller ears, you know. I wanted them to have this kind of peach fuzz on them, so they had a little bit of fur. Cedric came up with the idea to give them deer eyes, which I think is really cool.
We actually motion capture dancers, two girls, to give them this kind of like graceful behavior.
Here they are walking on the branch. You have to burst and fly away.
And then for the face, Rupert casted two kids.
I wanted to create a cheeky bunch of kind of Cockney kids.
And so we did a full-on capture of their facial expression, going through different type of emotions.
And then you communicate.
And the fairy that you see in the movie actually have their face.
The stag was an interesting character. It was pretty challenging for us. Our instinct was to go looking for reference of elks and deers, and we found that apparently as sort of a survival instinct, when those creatures stand still, they stand still. They don't move at all. So we ended up actually using a horse reference to get some of the sort of fidgeting actions and the hoof stomps and little movements.
He's blessing her.
I love the opening battle scene because it's such a twist on what we're familiar with.
The film is almost bookmarked by these creatures. They're made of razor-sharp shards of obsidian.
The Dark Army at the beginning is like you think it's a bunch of soldiers and then they shatter like glass.
But then towards the end of the film, when Snow White finally confronts Ravenna, and the ceiling turns out to be made of this dark obsidian material, they then form into these creatures, who we have been calling all along Dark Fairies.
Dark Fairy is made of 40 or 50,000 individual shards of obsidian rock. We went through a very long design process of modeling a creature. We had to come to certain decisions about, did it want eyes, did it want a mouth?
Cedric Troyan gave us a good idea in terms of movements. So we had to program a system to put all the pieces of glass together to form a creature.
But literally, it involved taking these modelled shards and painting or sculpting them onto the inner model of the fairy.
We had stunt doubles during the rehearsals, playing the part of these creatures, running around, and then when they actually came to roll the cameras, removed the stuntmen and had the actors act out the performance.
3, 2, 1, action!
The really exciting stuff on set was when you get the actors being thrown around by the fairies, and they had these sort of stunt harnesses on them. That was really exciting to see.
It could be a nice surprise for people at the end of the movie because it's probably one of the coolest effects that we have.
What's great is that it was never like effects first, theme and idea later. Everything comes from the theme, and everything comes from the characters and the world.